Cast iron can truly be non-stick. In fact, it can be more non-stick than Teflon without any of the PFAs or forever chemicals, if you have the right steps down, both in the cooking and in the cleaning and maintaining. Now, some of your newer cast iron pans, this is a Wagner, which is a lovely antique pan. And you'll notice that at the bottom of this, one, it's very well seasoned, but it is a smooth cast. A lot of your newer cast iron pans end up having that bumpy texture on the bottom, and even if it's well seasoned, it's still not as non-stick as the older pans. But the good news is, if you don't have an older antique pan, there are some companies completely made in the USA, and this is a smooth cast. So this is a Smithey. This video is not sponsored by them. We have purchased this pan all on our own, but look at this, you guys. Now, we've only had it for about 6 months, so it's not as dark and as deeply seasoned as this pan that is decades old, but look at that. That is a completely smooth cast. It's not bumpy at all. I really have been happy with these pans and their cast. They truly are smooth and made in the USA by a small family-owned company. So I'll have a link to them in the video description if you want to check out the Smithey pan. But regardless of which pan or brand that you have of cast iron, by using these tips, your food is going to be non-stick and easy maintained without having to season it over and over and over again, especially with eggs over easy, because the whole point of eggs over easy is to not have a broken yolk until we break it at the end. I'm going to show you how simple and easy it is to do even eggs over easy non-stick in cast iron. One of the secrets to cooking non-stick with cast iron is to make sure that you've properly preheated your cast iron before you add your fat and definitely before you add your food. So go ahead and put your cast iron pan on medium heat and let it come up to temperature without anything in it. So as soon as you start to see like a little bit of smoke and steam coming off of here, now it's time to add our fat. So we're gonna put our butter in. We just want it to be evenly over the surface. And now it is time to add our egg. So before you disturb or move or do anything with the egg, you want to make sure that it's sitting there in the fat, and you can see that this is simmering and cooking before you start to move it. Oftentimes, if you're doing scrambled eggs, something like this, people try to move the food too soon in the pan. It's not meat, obviously, but we want to kind of let it get that first essential sear almost before we start moving it around. So you can see that this is moving freely all around the pan. That's better than Teflon, my friends, for many reasons. But I do like my egg to be over easy, so we're gonna go ahead and flip that. There we go. Over easy and completely non-stick. So to ensure that your pan always stays nice and non-stick, cleaning is key. We just got done cooking our eggs, so while your pan is still warm, anything that maybe had stuck, we want to get removed immediately. If you've got any type of wooden spatula or a bench knife, we're just going to go, and actually none of this is really stuck on. That's moving pretty freely. That was just a little bit of egg and butter that was left in the pan. So this, there is no need to scrape. However, if you have a pan that does happen, scrape it. There's also these great chainmail scrubbies. So these can really help any type of stuck on part that may be on your cast iron skillet, and or simply using salt. Salt is a great way to scrub and scour anything that may be stuck on. So you've definitely got these options if you run into that. After we've dislodged anything that may be stuck in the pan, then we're simply going to wipe out any of this excess grease. In this case, I've got some extra melted butter in here, and so I want to remove that from the pan, and I don't want any of this melted fat going down my drain, so I'm just gonna get the excess out of the pan. Now this, honestly, that looks great. There's nothing left in here, so you could completely right now, and there's just enough of the butter fat residue in here. This is a pan that we use every single day, so I'm not worried about any type of fat going rancid because this gets used all the time. I could just simply leave this pan as is. But we could take it one step further. We've wiped everything out, give it a quick rinse in really hot water, and then we have one more step. If we've used water and introduced moisture to our cast iron, that's key. So anytime that we have used water on our cast iron, it is imperative that we get it dry immediately, especially before storage. So I'm gonna wipe out the excess moisture just here with my towel. And then I'm going to turn my burner on really low for just a few minutes to help any extra moisture evaporate, and the cast iron pores are going to open with the warmth, and this is key for our continued non-stick. So we want to make sure that we are putting a light layer of oil, and very light is key, back onto our pan anytime we have rinsed it, and or if you ever do have to use soap. Now historically, lye will strip seasoning. And so you definitely, if you ever heard grandma's like, don't you put soap on my cast iron pan, it was because of lye soap. Most of today's dish detergents are not actually soap. They don't contain lye. However, soap is designed to lift grease. Now, when your seasoning is well baked in and is solid in your pan, it's not going to lift it. You can decide if you want to use soap or not. Honestly, my pans, I never have to use soap on them because of all the secrets that I'm sharing with you. Up to you, but definitely we don't want to soak our pans in hot, soapy water like you would use other types of cookware. So after you have or have not used soap, rinsed it with water, we're going to make sure it's nice and dry, and we're going to get that warm. And then we're going to just use a little bit of olive oil. I've actually found olive oil. I've tried flaxseed oil. I've tried all the different oils and fats. I've found for just maintaining my seasoning, especially in a pan that you're using all the time, olive oil is really my choice. This video is sponsored by Azure Standard. That is where I get a lot of our cooking things that we're not producing here ourselves on the homestead. Olive oil is one of those. They have an organic, extra virgin, cold pressed in glass olive oil. And the key is to use a small amount. Most people use too much oil with their cast iron, both when they're seasoning and maintaining it, and that can cause it to become gummy and spotty. So we're just gonna drop a small amount here into the skillet, literally just a few drops. And then you can use a paper towel or like a handkerchief, or here's just a flour sack towel. Of course, oil is going to stain it. So this is just one of my well-used kitchen towels. And we just simply wanna smear this all over the bottom of the pan and then a little bit up on the side. So our main cooking surfaces. And I used a small amount, so there's not a whole lot of residue. But if you were to see a lot, take a different corner of the towel that doesn't have any oil on it and just give it a very light wipe. There we go. Now I'm gonna let this go ahead and cool off. As I said, I use this pan pretty much every single day. So it usually just sits here on the stove burner, but once it's cooled off, you can obviously transfer it to a hanging rack and or your kitchen cupboard until it's ready to use again, and it will be non-stick, ready to go for your next cooking project.